if you finally take a nap first, get yourself on a plane, get back to your shopping mall, get back to your people, they will probably be at the airport there to welcome you. While they wait your return, sitting here in Saudi after having done what you've done for your family and spoken as you have about your country, just some words for the Congolese and the people that are back at home cheering for you and waiting for your return.
Yeah, I would say thank you for the support. And I think they know me, and I never let them down. And I explained to them before reason why I'm doing this, and they support me. And if not, otherwise I was not going to come here. 18% support me, say go ahead. We know you are a warrior and you come back again. I would like to say thank you to them, and I won't let you down again. Enough. This is one more and enough. I do excellencies, no big favor. There's no one who's taking boxing on a different level right now if he's not the excellencies. So he's controlling everything. If you ask me favor, why not? Look, after the fight, he came here, Martin. We have a man. So I think I'll have that because the only man who can make the thing impossible possible. So I'm so happy here.
From the boxing community, speaking for the boxing fans, let me thank you for taking the challenge, keeping this card at the highest of elevated levels, getting everybody excited, something to talk about. They were all on their feet. When you walked into the arena, we spoke about what might happen from the moment that it was announced that it would be you right until the end of the fight. So you kept the fight exciting. You made this card one of the best in boxing history. We can't wait to see you on May 2nd. Thank you again for a hell of a performance. You did the best you could do, and we know that you'll be back and better.
I will be back, strong than before.
Radio Raheem with Martin Bakole.
Joseph Parker circles towards Martin Bakole with that left glove of his just to see what sort of reaction it draws out, and in the end Bakole swipes at it with both of his gloves. And that's the sort of reaction Parker wanted, because by circling with that lead hand towards his opponent it distracts them, and that takes their attention away from other parts of Parker's offense that he's trying to layer. So you can see here that Parker sees Bakole initially react to it, and so what he does immediately after then is continue circling towards him, but he introduces foot feints into the equation. So he initially circles upstairs with that lead glove, and then he foot feints towards Martin Bakole, and look how heavily Bakole bites on the feint, as he's having to contend with two things going on at the same time. First of all, that circling lead hand upstairs, and then the foot feint downstairs. So he bites heavily on it, a little bit uncertain about what's coming his way. And it's important to note that Joseph Parker was both proactive and reactive with that circling lead hand towards Bakole. So while he's circling, Bakole tries to shoot in on the inside with a jab from below the hip. It's below the plane of vision of Joseph Parker, but Parker catches the shot with that right glove of his. But as he makes his exit, look at him circling with that lead hand again. So he's proactive and reactive with that circling lead hand, and immediately afterwards he then dips in levels and fires a jab to the body of Bakole, staying low so he avoids that return jab in the process. And then we see Joseph Parker switch up his guard. You can see him have a high guard here, and then he transitions that momentarily. As he opens up his defense, that transitions to a cross guard, and he's inviting risk and inviting danger his way. Now with a low lead hand, this time round, Bakole looks to exploit that and fires a fast jab down the middle. But as he looks to follow up with the right hand, watch Parker's left glove, just controlling that right shoulder of Bakole, and that misfires that right hand over the top as a result. And even at such close proximity, Parker's feeling comfortable at this range with Bakole, with a low lead hand inviting pressure, knowing he can pull on the punches. And Joseph Parker also looks to manipulate the ranges. You can see him foot feint towards Bakole here, teasing as though he's about to launch into an attack here, but he doesn't, but Bakole bites heavily on that feint. And when making his entries with body attacks, Joseph Parker stays very low, a low center of gravity that avoids return fire, and it puts him out of position for a counter jab. And this pays dividends, particularly against a tall opponent like Martin Bakole, because he has to reach down lower as a result to land on the target, and Parker gets there first. And even with the riskier shots, like this over-the-top right hand you're about to see just graze Bakole on the top of the head, watch Parker take his head completely off that center line. So hypothetically, even if he'd missed completely with this shot altogether, he'd have been out of harm's way for return fire, because look at Bakole's right hand position. Now Parker's out of the line of attack for that right hand, although with that said, Parker was very lucky not to be made to pay here. You can see him drop his lead hand very low, and then while transitioning to a European style high guard, in the process he almost gets tagged by Bakole with a left hand that almost catches him. And this is a warning message for Parker in the final 20 seconds of that opening round. However, Parker doesn't learn his lesson and he engages unnecessarily, leaving himself open, and as a result, Martin Bakole is able to get off this right hand and it knocks Joseph Parker's head back, and it's a real wake-up call for him. But then afterwards, you can see Parker more defensively responsible again. As he makes this attack, you can see him dipping low and out of the line for any return cross there with that body shot. And Joseph's now mixing up the angles of his attacks by throwing the jab from below the hip. It's below Bakole's eye line, below his plane of vision, and it stuns him. But defensively, this left Parker compromised with that low lead hand, and Bakole was able to capitalize himself with a jab, as you can see here. So it was a catch-22 in that respect, but a more common theme that Parker was trying to embed into Bakole's head was, the shot will follow the direction of my body. So if I drop in levels, as you can see here, it's going to be a body shot. And then upstairs, whether it's a jab or a naked right hand as you're about to see, if I'm standing up tall, it's going to be a shot to the head, and on this occasion it missed. And this confused Bakole a little bit for the knockout sequence, because Parker dipped a little bit lower, but at the same time he took his head off the center line, so he'd avoid Bakole's shot, but at the same time he'd catch Bakole with a shot that Bakole thought was going to the body, as you can see. Right from the very moment that Joseph Parker dips in levels, he then takes his head off the center line, but Bakole reads that initial signal and thinks, right, tuck up to the body, but it actually goes upstairs and it catches the top of his head. And it's a staggered knockdown, but Bakole then touches the canvas and the referee then calls it off as Martin Bakole hasn't quite got his senses under him. And Joseph Parker wins via second round knockout. Now for context, it's worth bearing in mind that Martin Bakole took this fight on less than 48 hours notice, so that limits the extent to which we can read into everything that happened and take it at complete face value. But with that said, Joseph Parker's use of the lead hand, as successful as it was, both proactively and reactively in this fight tonight, did speak volumes about how much he's improved as a fighter. There were other elements like taking his head off the center line that far, as he did against Zhilei Zhang, as he did against Deontay Wilder as well. Those were more tactics we'd seen from him that he just polished up incrementally, fight by fight. But the use of that circling lead hand wasn't something we saw against Wilder. And against Zhilei Zhang as well, it wasn't used anywhere near to the same degree, and certainly not that early into the fight as well. So Joseph Parker is streamlining and polishing his boxing repertoire and layering his attacks in a way now that is becoming quite difficult to read. But at the same time, he's welcoming a level of risk that's not entirely necessary. And he was almost made to pay for that in this fight against Bakole tonight. In the final 20 seconds of round one, he was let off the hook after Bakole narrowly missed with that left hand. But then he made the same mistake again, taking an unnecessary risk, and he almost really paid the price for it when Bakole landed. But with that said, Joseph Parker did show that he's now willing to stand in there with the biggest punches. We've seen that in the last three fights. Deontay Wilder, he was willing to stand right in front of him at times. Zhilei Zhang as well although he was dropped by Zhang, so we have to factor that in as well. Martin Bakole, Joseph Parker standing in front of, at the time you could argue, the three most formidable punchers in the division. So there's that worth bearing in mind as well. Parker's confidence at short range has come on leaps and bounds. So the main takeaways outside of the lead hand circling mechanism that he polished in this fight tonight that I would probably highlight in particular would be his confidence at short range as well, but also when making his exits, and we saw this again in the Wilder fight